These are the most shocking, interesting historical photographs and the most unusual objects from the past. Let's get 10,000 subscribers. In 1987, a parade in East Berlin symbolically showcased computers as achievements of socialist science. The technology was displayed alongside workers' columns and festive floats. In 1972, during a Liverpool versus West Ham match, a dog ran onto the pitch and stopped play near goalkeeper Ray Clements. The incident made headlines in the British press and became one of the season's most memorable football moments. In 1949, Paris hosted a circus featuring Little People artists who emphasized their craft and professionalism beyond stereotypes. In 1935, Nazi Germany, men and women were publicly humiliated for violating the Nuremberg racial laws. Signs with accusations were displayed to shame individuals before the crowd and reinforce the regime's climate of terror. In 1930, world golf champion Jack Redmond performed a stunt on the rooftop of the Whitehall building in New York. Such acts were staged for press coverage and became early examples of sports publicity on skyscrapers. In the 1930s, Argentine police trained with improvised shields and body armor alongside an armored vehicle. These experimental protective devices were designed to counter riots and gunfire, but proved impractical and never saw widespread adoption. During the German occupation of Paris in 1943, fuel shortages led residents to improvise hybrid vehicles. Lightweight car bodies were adapted for horse-drawn use, allowing mobility despite the severe scarcity of gasoline. In 1909, a polar explorer was dressed in a traditional fur suit made of animal skins, which protected him from the deadly cold of the Arctic. Similar outfits made of deer and seal skins were used long before the advent of modern materials. On November 6, 1993, in Kiev, a soldier of the Honor Guard fainted during the ceremony at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. The incident occurred on the anniversary of the city's liberation from Nazi occupation and was captured by photographers. On February 17, 1974, Private Robert K. Preston hijacked a UH-1 Huey training helicopter from Fort Meade and landed it on the White House South Lawn. He was quickly arrested, but the incident became one of the most serious security breaches of the presidential residence. In 1872, 10-year-old George Davey was sentenced to 1 month of hard labor in London's Wandsworth prison for stealing 2 rabbits. At the time, even young children faced harsh punishments, and the prison was notorious as one of Britain's toughest. In 1930, the Soviet agency Intourist released a poster promoting travel to Moscow for foreign visitors. Founded in 1929 and controlled by the OGPU, the company combined tourism with intelligence-gathering functions. On October 14, 1920, near Kakhovka, soldiers of the 51st Rifle Division captured a British Mark tank that had been supplied to the White Army. The slogan, "For Holy Rus," was painted on its armor, turning it into a symbol of the Civil War. In 1917, military cadets defended the Kremlin against Red Guard units. The photo shows a mounted Maxim machine gun used during the street fighting in Moscow. On May 24, 1913, boxer Luther McCarty suddenly died in the ring during his bout with Arthur Pelkey, suffering a fatal brain hemorrhage after a seemingly light blow. A chilling detail marked the tragedy. As the count was made, a single beam of light illuminated his body, and the very next day, the arena burned to the ground. During World War I, a Serbian soldier and his father fell asleep side by side on an improvised bed in Belgrade. In 1914-1915, Serbia became the center of fierce battles, losing up to a quarter of its population. In the 1930s, Italy introduced the Iter Avto, an early predecessor of GPS. Connected to the car's speedometer, it automatically scrolled paper maps according to the vehicle's speed. In the 1960s, Lufthansa offered passengers a unique service: draft beer served directly from a keg on board. This marketing move highlighted German traditions and set the airline apart from its competitors. In 1970, the giant tanker Esso Hibernia was built in Wallsend, UK. Measuring over 300 meters in length, it was among the largest oil tankers in the world at the time of its launch. USA, 1947. A teacher plays the piano while children follow along on paper keyboards. This inventive method allowed students to practice music without real instruments. Italy, March 1944. Allied bombers soar over Mount Vesuvius as it erupts with fire and ash. Imagine what the pilots felt, facing both war in the skies and the fury of nature below. Philips, 1956. A refrigerator with a built-in radio, combining practicality and entertainment in one device. A true symbol of an era where design and innovation walked hand in hand. USA, 1958. The experimental Servaval car, designed by engineer Walter Jerome, was meant to protect passengers with its separated driver's cabin and engine section. Only one prototype was ever built, making it a rare piece of automotive history. A lottery used by the Military Registration Service to determine who should be sent to Vietnam first. Each capsule contains the day of the year, which determines the order of conscription depending on the date of birth. Washington, D.C., 1969. The photo shows aerial images of central Hiroshima. On the left, dense city blocks before the atomic bombing on August 6, 1945. On the right, a devastated cityscape after the explosion, with only the river and some structures visible. In 1917, an Italian Alpino mountain specialist crosses a chasm on a zip line, showcasing early military ropeway engineering in the Alpine front. The image highlights inventive troop movement solutions in World War I mountain warfare. An American WB-2 soldier eats a meal seated on a line of 155 mm artillery shells. Simple field food and standard mess kit highlight the everyday life of troops. The image captures routine and adaptation to wartime circumstances. A French soldier, likely a medic, wears an Adrian steel helmet fitted with a protective chain screen for the eyes against fragments and debris. This feature was used at the front in 1918 to enhance safety. In 1945, U.S. intelligence produced photo montages predicting how Hitler might appear if he tried to disguise himself after the war. The images show him with altered hairstyles, beards, no mustache, and even glasses, aiming to make identification more difficult. During World War II, British pilots fitted Spitfire fighters with beer barrels instead of bombs to deliver fresh ale to troops in Normandy. Flying at 12,000 feet kept the beer naturally cold during transport. In 1940, officials of the Third Reich used calipers to measure a man's nose in order to determine his racial background based on anthropometric features. Such procedures were part of the official racial policy of Nazi Germany. Night view of Red Square in Moscow, 1945. Thousands gathered for a grand celebration of World War II victory, with powerful searchlights and fireworks illuminating the sky. Morning in the jungle, east of Saigon, 1965. U.S. soldiers rest after a sleepless night, awaiting an ambush that never happened. Sunbeams filtering through the trees create a mood of relief and exhaustion. A Polish border guard and his horse drink from a mountain stream during patrol in the Bieszczady Mountains, 1980. The forest backdrop and gear reinforce the calm, cooperative bond. Archival card with photos and fingerprints of Benito Mussolini was made in Bern, Switzerland on June 19, 1903, after his arrest by Swiss police. The dossier records anthropometric measurements and identifying marks. Aerial view of Hackney Marshes, London, 1962. 111 football matches are played simultaneously, with hundreds of players and goals visible on the vast field. This event symbolized England's tradition of mass amateur football. The image shows Belgian and French coins damaged by a bullet, which saved a soldier's life at the start of World War I. In September 1914, Belgian soldier Optatius Bisons was shot after the jingling coins in his pocket revealed his location. But they stopped the bullet. Bar patrons outside The Squirrel on Götgaden, Stockholm, 1895. Workers in rugged clothes and wide hats congregate at the entrance, surrounded by other locals and passers-by. World War I soldiers release carrier pigeons from a woven basket in the trenches. These pigeons were used to deliver messages from the front line, reliably returning to their lofts despite enemy fire. Until radio communications were widespread, pigeons carried short-coded notes between the battlefield and headquarters. A photographer adjusts his camera to capture beachgoers in Atlantic City, New Jersey, 1912. Bathers in period swimsuits mingle near a woman and child on a donkey with a sign. In the background, a lively crowd and resort buildings create a vibrant scene. New volunteers are issued military gear at the supply depot of the elite Panzergrenadier Division, Großdeutschland, January 1944. Helmets are stacked at the front, with an officer assisting a recruit as others line up for their uniforms. A tin box labeled Improved Trojans contains Trojan brand condoms manufactured in the United States since the beginning of the 20th century. Inside, there are individually packaged products. The advertising text advises to buy immediately in bulk from a pharmacist for significant savings. In the early 20th century, pistol dueling with wax bullets was a demonstration Olympic sport. The photo shows a competitor in protective gear preparing to fire, 1909. These duels were held from 1906 to 1912 as a safe alternative to real dueling. Participants shot at each other to score points for hits, not injuries. Olympic timekeepers in blazers record event results from a raised platform during the 1912 Summer Games in Stockholm. A photographer stands overhead, while a packed stadium surrounds the officials. A female athlete at the London Olympics in 1908 performs a high jump in a dress and barefoot, clearing a rope used as the bar. The image reflects early scissors jump technique and the equipment of the era. A girl walks a baby carriage by pulling it with her extraordinarily long braids. A creative and humorous multitasking solution. The village yard backdrop adds charm and highlights everyday inventiveness. Women in Canada, 1939, are wearing transparent cone-shaped face shields to protect themselves from snow and wind during blizzards. This practical invention improved visibility and comfort outdoors. A historic image from the 1870s shows one of the first Standard Oil tank wagons, a barrel-shaped tank mounted on a horse-drawn cart, with metal-rimmed wheels and a driver seated atop. These wagons supplied oil and kerosene to towns and rural areas long before motor tankers. The photo shows an antique Zenith TV with an original 1962 user manual, a built-in radio system, and a vinyl record player. The General Electric warranty card with the date of installation of the lamp has been preserved in the kit, which allows you to accurately date the era of the device. Archival photo. Cornelius Vanderbilt, a railroad and shipping magnate, plays cards with business associates on the porch at Saratoga Springs in the 1870s. Card games were an element of high society and informal networking among Gilded Age dynasties. John D. Rockefeller turns away from an elderly beggar on the street in the 1880s, a gesture that has become a symbol of the discussion of the social responsibility of the Gilded Age business elite. The scene was actively used by critics to illustrate the isolation of tycoons from the problems of ordinary people. A train crosses a bridge against the backdrop of rocky Utah terrain. The construction of the road made it possible to connect the east and west of the United States for the first time, dramatically accelerating the development of territories and the economic growth of the country. Despite the economic recovery, the construction of the railway has become a source of numerous tragedies and social tension. After the construction was completed, many workers faced discrimination and job search in the West. The Vanderbilt women display the era's opulent fashion with elaborate hats, lace, and silk fabrics, reflecting both wealth and the status symbols of Gilded Age high society. Next year, children gathered in a narrow alley between apartment buildings in New York, 1890s. Laundry hanging over the courtyard, walls covered with soot and moisture. Mass migration has led to overcrowding and difficult living conditions for thousands of families in urban slums. A family of 4 makes cigars right in the room of an apartment building on the Lower East Side of New York, 1890s. Such domestic work was common among the poor, with adults and children working from early morning until late at night to earn at least some money. Railway tracks littered with burned wagons are the consequences of a major strike by Pullman workers in July 1894. The conflict was caused by a decrease in salaries against the background of maintaining high rents and housing payments in the village of Pullman, which provoked mass discontent. The Vanderbilt Horse Show in Newport, early 1900s. In the arena, carriages are pulled by thoroughbred horses, and spectators in elegant suits and hats watch the competition. The Heinkel He-178 was the world's first aircraft to fly under jet propulsion, debuting on August 27, 1939. Developed privately by Hans von Ohainsen and supported by Ernst Heinkel, it made history but failed to impress Nazi officials. The photo shows a unique collection of 36 Chevrolet Corvette cars, one copy of each model year from 1953 to 1989. All the cars were in an abandoned parking lot in New York for about 25 years. In November 1946, racehorses were loaded from Shannon Airport in Ireland for the first time for a transatlantic flight on an American Overseas Airlines passenger plane. The photo shows how the staff prepares 6 foals belonging to the breeder F. Mora O'Farrell for transportation to the USA. In the carriage sits the influential banker Harris Charles Fanistock with his wife and another elegant couple, a vivid example of the fashion for leisurely horseback riding among the American aristocracy of the early 20th century. Such outings were characterized by exquisite outfits, top hats, large hats, and floral accessories. Chuck Yeager stands at the Bell X-1 experimental rocket aircraft with the inscription "Glamorous Glennis" on board. On October 14, 1947, it was Yeager who was the first in history to break the sound barrier on this aircraft, laying the foundation for modern supersonic flights. A group of elegantly dressed travelers posed by a train near a Pullman car in Denver, early 1900s. The heyday of railways allowed wealthy people to travel long distances comfortably, expanding horizons and strengthening social ties. The Yellowstone fires of 1988 became one of the largest and most devastating for U.S. national parks. The fire engulfed 36% of Yellowstone's territory, destroying 793,880 acres of forest and causing the deaths of hundreds of animals. Initially, the fires caused by lightning were not extinguished, following the management policy of the time. The photo shows the interior of a Boeing 747 under development in 1968, 9 months before the first flight. This legendary airliner revolutionized air transport. The cabin was distinguished by spacious rows, wide seats, and plenty of legroom. Even in economy class, there were soft cushions and increased comfort. The photograph of St. Augustine Street, taken in 1861, reflects life in one of the oldest cities in the USA and Florida. The picture shows men on a cobbled street among wooden apartment buildings, with distinctive balconies typical of the Spanish colonial period. The picture shows the installation of the Eiffel Tower's unique hydraulic elevator system during construction in Paris, France. When completed in 1889, the structure became the tallest in the world, over 300 meters. And its elevators, equipped with a complex hydraulic mechanism, were considered an engineering miracle of their time. In the 1960s, a historic steam locomotive plying the scenic expanses of the Ozarks became one of the popular attractions at Silver Dollar City, a theme park in Branson, Missouri. During the train ride, an unexpected surprise awaited the guests. On the way, they were stopped by robbers, staging a robbery based on the Wild West. Women and children pose at a simple wooden hut in Florida, 1875. This building is typical of the homes of tenants and sharecroppers of the Reconstruction era, when former slaves often stayed to work on plantations, giving a share of the harvest to landowners. Neuschwanstein Castle in Bavaria, Germany, pictured during construction in the early 1880s. An array of forests surrounds a majestic residence on top of a cliff. The construction of the castle began in 1868 by order of the fabulous King Ludwig II. The main street of Scottsdale, Arizona, in the mid-1950s, stylish cars in the foreground, shops with original facades along the road, among which Lulu Bell stands out. The atmosphere reflects the economic boom, the proliferation of automobiles, and the formation of urban identity in post-war America. In the photo, a black student walks through a dense crowd of white peers at a school in Clinton, Tennessee, 1956. The scene reflects the difficult reality of the first stage of school desegregation after the federal decree, when 12 African American students enrolled in a previously segregated high school. In the living room of the mid-1950s, the family spends the evening watching TV, a symbol of a new era and the center of American life. By the end of the decade, televisions were in almost every home, gathering families around the screen to watch news, broadcasts, and children's programs. School children dressed in the fashion of the 1950s are sitting at the long chrome counter of a snack bar right after school, a typical scene from post-war America. In that era, snack bars became a meeting place for young people, thanks to affordable prices, convenient schedules, and the rapid growth of automotive culture. In 1956, black children and their mothers walked to the Webster School in Hillsboro, Ohio, holding homemade posters against segregation. Such marches have become part of the struggle for civil rights even in small towns, reminding of the tenacity of ordinary families. In 1955, an American family inspects a new radiation shelter in the backyard, equipped with bunk beds, shelves with canned food, and necessary supplies for a long stay. A family in Kentucky, 1955, bowed their heads in prayer before a festive dinner at a long table served with traditional dishes. The scene reflects the enduring values of small towns in the South: respect for elders, hospitality, and cohesion, even against the backdrop of technological and cultural change. In 1848, Cincinnati's waterfront was a bustling economic center. Steamboats transported goods along the Ohio River, connecting the city with America's largest trade routes. Beijing, 1870s. A row of traditional shops on one of the streets of the city, captured by British engineer and photographer Thomas Child. Symbols of shopping establishments are visible among the signs. An early view of the coast of the future Miami, the picture shows a wide strip of beach, rare palm trees, and a wooden pier, before the massive construction and the appearance of famous skyscrapers. The city was named after the Miami Indian tribe, and its rapid growth was driven by immigration, tourism, and investment, despite frequent hurricanes. April 1990, Cape Canaveral. The crew of the Shuttle Discovery embarks on a historic mission to launch the Hubble Space Telescope. This is the crew that had to deliver and launch into orbit a device worth $1.5 billion. Elvis Presley performs on stage in front of an enthusiastic crowd at a fair and dairy exhibition in Tupelo, Mississippi, 1956. His energetic performance style and dancing helped make rock and roll a true musical phenomenon, and Elvis himself became an icon of a new generation. In New York in the 1950s, teenagers could circumvent parental restrictions by renting portable radios from Rent-A-Radio for 35 cents an hour. The minimum rental was 3 hours, which was enough to enjoy late, night rock and roll broadcasts. In 1978, London was experiencing a tourist boom. Millions of visitors came to the capital every year, wishing to take a photo as a souvenir. In the picture, 2 women pose at a Photo King 8080 coin-operated photo machine against the backdrop of the statue of Eros and the iconic Coca-Cola advertisement in Piccadilly Circus. In 1965, Las Vegas was at the peak of its golden era. By the pool of the Sands Hotel, guests play blackjack right in the water, enjoying relaxation and a festive atmosphere. The legendary casinos offered entertainment for every taste, and the resort lifestyle became the hallmark of the city. Miami, 1930s. A trailer park among palm trees demonstrates the growing popularity of auto tourism in Florida, where seaside vacations have become available not only to wealthy travelers, but also to the general public. Light and inexpensive trailers allowed whole families to come to the south. In the 1980s, Machu Picchu became one of the symbols of booming international tourism. In the picture, a couple of tourists enjoy a breathtaking view of the ruins of an ancient Incan citadel among the picturesque Andes Mountains. P&O is the oldest cruise company in the world, founded in 1837 and started with mail delivery between Great Britain, Spain, and Portugal. In the 1840s, its routes expanded rapidly. In the photo is one of the P&O mail steamers, the Royal Mail SS India, from the era of active international shipping. In 1911, a gym was opened on the Cunard Line's Franconia liner, where passengers practiced sports in business suits and hats. The first transatlantic flight of the liner departed from Liverpool in the same year, and fitness rooms became a characteristic feature of luxury sea voyages of that era. On May 31, 1911, the Titanic, the largest and most luxurious liner of its time, a symbol of the engineering progress and ambitions of the White Star Line Company, was launched at the Harland and Wolff shipyard in Belfast. His first and only voyage took place in April 1912 and ended in tragedy just 5 days after sailing. The Normandy liner was considered a model of elegance and technical excellence, but it had been operating on the line for less than 5 years. In February 1942, during the conversion of the ship into a military transport in New York, a fire led to its flooding and capsizing right in the harbor, where it stood until the end of the war, after which it was dismantled. 1900, plantation in Florida. A woman hand washes clothes in wooden buckets using primitive tools, typical of the early 20th century. Modern washing machines with drums and a spin press have existed since 1870. In 1909, a strong Category 3 hurricane passed through the Marathon, Florida Keys area, causing significant destruction among residential buildings. The photo shows a wooden building shifted from the foundation, which is supported by supports. The construction of New York Central Station began in 1903 and was completed in 1913. Turning it into an architectural gem of the city. The complex is designed in the Beaux Arts style, with a monumental facade, columns, and sculptures. In the 1950s, teenagers in the United States gained significant financial independence for the first time. Their average weekly income rose from $2.41 in 1946 to $8.96 in 1956. Teenage purchasing power allowed them to purchase cars, which even caused parking problems near high schools. The Fort Bridge in Scotland was built with the participation of about 4,000 workers, 57 of whom died during construction. The impressive railway structure, completed in 1890, became one of the engineering wonders of its time and a UNESCO World Heritage Site. In the 1950s, American teenagers became a key audience in the music market. By 1958, they bought 70% of all records sold, and sales of portable turntables reached 10 million devices annually. In the 1950s, the popularity of open-air cinemas increased in the United States. More than 4,000 such establishments appeared, which allowed teenagers to watch movies right in their cars. In 1975, during the construction of the CN Tower in Toronto, a Sikorsky CH-54 helicopter lifted a giant crane, which was used to install a 102-meter-high antenna. In total, more than 1,500 specialists participated in the work. In 1930, a worker anchors metal beams at a height during the construction of the Empire State Building, an iconic Art Deco skyscraper with a height of 381 meters. At that time, the building became the tallest in the world, and about 3,000 builders participated in the construction. In 1957, in Milan, Italy, the huge excitement around rock and roll concerts led to violent scenes at the entrance. Young people literally stormed the doors to get to the performance. Similar events across Europe symbolized the genre's explosive popularity. In 1959, their own cars became a central element of the lives of American teenagers. On weekends, they gathered in the parking lots of drive-through restaurants, discussed cars, arranged repairs, and spent time with friends. March 14, 1993, New York. A driver clears a car completely covered with snow after the storm of the century, the effects of which were felt by 22 states. The storm caused over $2 billion in damage and became the largest snowstorm of the decade. Even South Florida was affected. In 1995, a landmark presentation of the Windows 95 operating system took place in Washington, which marked the era of mass distribution of personal computers. Bill Gates, the head of Microsoft, has released a product that has become the standard for millions of users. In 1995, Pixar released the Toy Story, the first full-length film created entirely using computer animation. The film revolutionized the industry, impressing viewers with complex visual effects and a deep script. In May 1997, a historic confrontation took place in New York. The IBM Deep Blue chess computer beat the world champion Garry Kasparov, proving for the first time the superiority of the machine over the Grandmaster. This match marked a new era in the development of artificial intelligence. The table clearly demonstrates how medicines and sweets can be similar in shape and color, which creates a risk of accidental poisoning in young children who cannot read. Many pills are visually indistinguishable from popular sweets, which explains the strict labeling requirements for medicines. The Commercial Appeal newspaper of July 21, 1969, reported on a historic event. At 3:18 p.m. on July 20, 1969, humans landed on the moon for the first time. On the front page, in large print, is "We made it, we're on the moon," reflecting national pride and the scale of the era's discovery. The Magic Brain Calculator. Metal calculator is a mechanical device for arithmetic calculations, popular before the advent of electronic calculators. Working with it requires manipulating the numbered tracks with a stylus. The page of the illustrated ship's log from 1777 contains a beautiful drawing of a sailboat, current weather and marine observations, as well as entries about the route and events of the day. Such a log was an important navigation tool, recording the details of the voyage, including storms and other natural phenomena. The vintage sheet music typewriter from the 1950s was designed for manual typing of musical notes and signs on paper before the advent of digital technology. The device is equipped with a circular keyboard with musical symbols and allows you to create professional sheet music for composers and music teachers. The photo shows a rare set of the Monopoly board game, released in the first decades of the 20th century. The set retains the original rules, game money, real estate cards, and plastic chips, which makes the find a valuable historical artifact for collecting. The photo shows a rare miniature book set with a complete collection of plays by William Shakespeare, which is 111 years old. The compact format made it easy to store and read classical literature. Each volume is a unique historical artifact from the early 20th century. This condom vending machine was manufactured by the National Preventive Medicine Sales Service in Chicago and received a patent in 1942. Its bright orange body, metal plate with coin receiver and key were typical of the models that were installed for the prevention of diseases in public places in 8 U.S. states. At the beginning of the 20th century, U.S. coal companies, including Consolidation Coal, began staging accident reconstructions for photographs that were used in magazines and safety instructions. These images served as a tool for education, legal reporting, and insurance, stimulating attention to occupational safety and reducing the number of injuries among workers. In the photo, linguist J.P. Harrington and 3 representatives of the Thula Kuna people record their language and songs using a dictaphone at the Smithsonian Institution. This work played a key role in preserving the unique culture and traditions of indigenous peoples in the early 20th century. In 1908, on Labor Day, the Miners Association of America in DuBois, Pennsylvania, held a festive parade with a horse cart and an anthracite block as a symbol of the miners' labor. Labor Day, established in the United States in the 19th century, became a holiday of trade unions. At a modern event, a participant in the uniform of General John Reynolds examines a stereo photograph of the battlefield where the historical prototype died exactly 150 years ago. This way of diving into the past with the help of three-dimensional archival images enhances interest in military history. The Osborne family is pictured against the backdrop of the main street under construction at Disneyland in 1955, the year the first Disney park opened in Anaheim, California. The bell skirt is a short, lived fashion trend of the early 20th century, which peaked in 1908-1914. The narrow hem of this skirt hindered movement, which is why it was called the speed limit skirt. It made it much more difficult for a woman to walk. In a 1948 photo, actress and former Hollywood star Shirley Temple holds her daughter, Linda Susan. The picture illustrates a new chapter in Temple's life, already outside the film career, in the family, after her early success in cinema. The photo shows a pedal board with a set of vintage guitar pedals, including the iconic Electro Harmonix Big Muff model from 1969, famous for its distinctive fuzz and long sustain, as well as the classic wah-wah Vox pedal, an iconic device of the 1960s for expressive guitar sound. The photo shows Anatoly Josifo, the inventor of the first automatic photo booth, Photomaton, which he created in New York in 1925. His device allowed thousands of people to instantly receive a series of portraits for a small fee, becoming a revolution in mass photography. The photo shows the building of a girls' school in Tampere, Finland in 1924. The architecture reflects the strict style of the early 20th century. A multi-story brick building with large windows, typical of educational institutions of that time. A 1920 photograph shows a street in Tirana, Albania, with rows of early cars and locals against a backdrop of traditional architecture. The scene reflects the transition of society to new technologies and the emergence of vehicles in urban space. 1920, Riga, Latvia. The photo shows one of the old city blocks with cobblestones and passers-by at the window of a perfume and colonial goods store. The scene conveys the atmosphere of a European city at the beginning of the 20th century, when the streets served as the main arena of urban life. A 1920 photograph in Shanghai shows a weaver working on a large hand loom right on the street in front of a house and shops. The scene illustrates a traditional craft in an urban environment when fabric making took place in full view of passers-by, remaining a part of the daily life of the city. Tram stop in Brussels, October 1922, a classic city pavilion with storefronts and austere architectural lines, surrounded by passers-by in modern clothes of the time. The scene reflects the rhythm of the European capital, where public transport was an important part of urban life a century ago. In 1919, on the Huangpu River in Shanghai, one could observe a loaded barge passing by the building of the Russian consulate and the legendary Astor House Hotel. The image reflects the economic activity and the diverse architecture of the historic district when the city was a center of international trade. Dance and physical education classes were held in the ballroom of Flinders Street Station in Melbourne, Victoria, Australia in the 1920s and 1940s, a rare example of a spacious interior of a railway facility used for educational purposes. A 1920 photograph shows a bus in Plaza de Mayo in Buenos Aires, Argentina, among the cars of the time and urban architecture. The picture illustrates the development of urban transport and the life of the central streets of the South American capital at the beginning of the 20th century. In 1920, military college cadets marched down Peredo Street in Kaunas, Lithuania. The photo shows the formation of national military traditions in the early years of the country's independence, as well as the characteristic urban environment of that time. The photo shows a busy street in Tokyo, circa 1900-1920, filled with trams, rickshaws, cyclists, and pedestrians with umbrellas. The scene reflects the dynamics of urban life at the beginning of the 20th century, when old and new modes of transport coexisted against the background of traditional architecture. Mountain scene on the Serbian front during the First World War. Men with pack horses deliver supplies over difficult terrain. The photo reflects the hard life and the role of horse-drawn vehicles in the military logistics of that period. Thank you for watching this material. If you liked it, subscribe to the channel and like it. It helps us create even more interesting and useful content. Your attention is very important to us.